Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're gonna create something different. I'm gonna show you how I design leather goods before I make them for the first time. Let's start with little drawing. My drawing is really bad. I draw like a 3-year-old, so don't expect too much. But these drawings are a reference only, so they don't need to be too precise. We're gonna make a sling bag. I've got a couple things which I want to carry when I'm going for little walks, which is a drone and a little camera. This bag gonna have 3 parts, a front, back and a flap. Just to make you aware, I'm doing this bag for the first time, so there will be some mistakes which we're gonna correct later on in this video. I didn't have specific size in mind, so I'm just gonna place stuff I want to carry with me and then trace it onto the paper. It worked out that it's gonna have to be 16 centimeters tall plus the flap. It will be around 17 altogether. Before I draw the lines, I always measure it twice in different points. It's good to have 2 references, so the line is nice and parallel to the other lines. For the vertical lines, I use 90 degrees ruler. I'm gonna use 40 millimeters wide strap on it, so I mark it here. The back itself, it's gonna be slightly different shape than in here, but we will cut it out when we create the front. You will see in a minute. My creating process from outside, it might look a bit chaotic. That's why I want to share it with you. So I finished drawing out all the lines, so it's time to cut the shape out. Little tip for today: when you're cutting long lines, put the weight on back of your ruler so it doesn't shift when you cut or switch hands. When I finish cutting out the shape, I always do double check if everything is as it should be. It worked out that I need to do a couple minor adjustments. The back is finished. Now we're gonna cut out the flap. I want it a bit wider, so if it rains it doesn't come to my back, so I add 1 centimeter on each side. The length of a flap, we're gonna do it later on when we got the front as well. Later on this month I'm gonna create a video how I digitalize all my patterns. If you wanna see it, please subscribe to our channel, and obviously if you like this video so far, please hit the like button below. It's time to start working on a front bit, so what I do now is finding middle in both parts and place them together. That's gonna be my main reference line. Right, at this point we need to find out how wide the bag will be. In this case, I'm gonna try to do it 4 centimeters wide, so all my gear fit nice and tight in the bag. I find this part quite tricky because you need to create 3D model from something which is 2D. And it's flat surface. Then you need to take into consideration the margins for stitching lines and folds. It's quite easy to make mistake in here. I start with making 2 parallel lines to the middle line, and that's gonna be our front bit. Then we're gonna add bottom part and the side panels. I add 5 millimeters for a margin here, but I'm gonna change it later on to 1 centimeter because I'm using quite thick leather and it's gonna be flipped around and stitched on the inside. Now you can see I'm adding the sides. I actually did sides 4.5, which are not correct. They should be 4 centimeters, but later on I'm gonna correct it. You will see quite a few mistakes here on the design on the beginning, but we'll pick it up later on. That's why first design is made on paper. Sometimes I'm using thick foam as well to do it. We do this all just because we don't want to waste any leather. I finished bottom part and side panels, so I'm checking if everything is nice and 90 degrees. We don't want something to be a little bit kicked. I'm adding here a little margin because it's gonna be stitched on the inside and flipped around, so we need about 5 millimeters extra for the fold and for the stitching line. Last checks before cutting out. We're gonna draw also a line to align it with the back part. With a marker here, I'll mark all ends of the cutting line so I don't go too far. I would love to hear how you design your products. Let me know in the comments below. And let me know if you got any useful advice for me. My utility knife slipped in here. I'm gonna fix it in a minute. We're gonna use 40mm strap, so the slots need to be a bit bigger in here. So I'm just gonna get the front and put it on top of the back part and cut that pieces away. If that makes sense to you. To be honest with you, you can attach strap on the outside, but I like to hide it inside, so those slots needs to be slightly bigger because the stitching will be on top and the bottom. And the moment of truth. Let's have a look if everything is aligned well. You can see it here, it's not. I did sides bit too wide because I add margin for the stitching line where it doesn't need to be. So now I need to take away about 5 millimeters from each side and about 1 centimeters from stitching lines on the sides. So I refold everything back together, and you can now see that the side panels are aligning with the bottom part, but the sides are still a bit too wide because I add 5 millimeters to it now from the top, so I need to take about centimeters on the bottom. I'm taking the centimeters away because I left 5 millimeters on the bottom as well. And now also I need to take that angle away a little bit so it aligns nicely with the bottom part. But like I said, a mistake happened and it's good that we find it before we used it on a leather. That's why it's good to do a mock-up project with paper or a foam. Unfortunately, there will be one more mistake which I done. But it's a minor one, we can fix that later on. You will see it if you continue watching. I flipped the bottom part in here upwards, but I needed to go the other way around because I wanted that stitch to be inside the bag. But it was only for the purpose of checking if everything is alright and if I got enough space for the stitching margin on the bottom. I think I will add 5 millimeters in here extra. And now it's time to trim the flap. There is two ways of doing it. You can do that just simple math. And you just get 2 centimeters for mounting for 2 stitching lines, then add the wideness of a bag and where you want the flap to finish. But I like to do it on a live subject and check all my measurements on the model. And we end up with flap about 17 centimeters on 29 centimeters. The greatest benefit of having pattern on thick paper is that you can place it on a leather and manage your cutouts quite well. And it's way more easy to trace it with the scratch awl. After all adjustments we done, I feel that this pattern will be good enough. So we're gonna start cutting out the leather. And we see what's gonna come out from it. Today we're designing new stuff, so I'm not gonna bore you with all the process of making the bag. Just gonna show you only a couple important bits in making what we can change in the design. We're gonna scarf this bottom part because this leather is quite thick, but obviously if you want to use a slightly thinner leather you can do so without scarving it. I'm scarving just the front bit and only on the stitching lines. I like my goods to hold their shape, so I might overkill with thickness of a leather, but it's all up to you what you want to get from it. This bag is stitched on the inside, the bottom part, so I leave a bit bigger margin than the usual. I leave 1 centimeter for it, but only on the front part. All the rest of the parts they have stitching margin about 2.5 millimeters. It's time to do some stitching holes. I put pressure on the amount of holes I put in each side, so I count them like 3 times and write them down so I remember what to do on the other part which we're stitching together. But that's only if you got a handmade pattern. It's not big of a problem when you do electronic patterns. They're more precise than a handmade stuff. And it's also always the first time is the worst. When you have to come up with everything and place all the stitching lines where they should be. Sometimes it's problem with alignment or something silly like this. We've got everything to put together, so I clean the bottom edge and we start stitching. I'll get back to you in a minute when I finish the stitching. Remember earlier on I told you about another mistake I made. That's the one, and we made wrong alignment on the bottom part. So you remember this part where I folded up. I didn't cut off the excess of leather, I just folded and then I traced it back onto the leather. So I had to cut out, get rid of this part and stitch it together a bit further down so the other stitching line aligns perfectly. Sometimes silly little thing like this gives you another couple hours of work in custom-made items. That's why usually bespoke goods are a bit more expensive, because obviously you need more time to sit down on the design and make it all perfect at the first time. After correcting this mistake, all went smoothly. So the bag came quite nice, you can see it yourself. Last thing left to do is to fit the straps, top stitching the line and the lock for the bag. I'm gonna use 2 screw rivets just in case if I want to change it. I use screw rivets on the first projects, so sometimes if you do a mistake you can unscrew them and change it. So when I finish the bag, I test it out, check all the pattern, if everything, correct all the mistakes and put it in the book. I make plenty of notes so I can easily digitalize it. If you want to see how I digitalize this project, please watch our next video. Thanks for watching and hopefully see you soon.